We were part of a wonderful, dynamic Rebuilders Conference through TBH Ministries. Talika Barksdale Henry. She is such an awesome leader. And listen, I just want to let you know it was life changing. Normally, no matter what I do the Sunday service, but I had to get away this week because it was just I needed to prepare because I knew this was going to be a dynamic move of God, and it absolutely was. You have to check out Talika Barksdale Henry. Check her out on Facebook, on all her other platforms, because she's doing such a wonderful job. And I'm going to be this Sunday at 4 p.m. down there with Pastor Pamela Maziarz at Tabernacle Baptist Church. She's another awesome powerhouse in the gospel. So I'm just excited about the doors that God is opening and just the fellowships that I'm able to be a part of. Listen, today we've got Bible study coming today out of the book of John, chapter number 7, verses 6-7. And I'm going to read this for you in your hearing. Here's what it says. Then Jesus said to them, my time has not yet come, but your time is already here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me. Now watch this. Because I testify of it that its works are evil. So now, look at this. Jesus says to them, he's talking to his brothers at this time. He says, listen, my time is not yet come. Now, his brothers not believing in him are urging him to go to Jerusalem, right, for the Feast of Booths. And they want him to go there because they're saying, listen, you need to demonstrate your power openly, implying that he's being a little too secretive for somebody who wants to draw a crowd. They're assuming that his motive here is to draw attention to himself. So what they come up with is a somewhat of a marketing strategy, right? They're coming and saying, listen, you need to get out there. You need to get yourself in a bigger crowd. You need to get yourself in a bigger platform. You're down here in Galilee. Nobody can hear you here. No matter what you do, this is not going to resonate. This is not going to make any impact on the world. If you really want to be the kind of leader that you say you are, you need to go to Jerusalem. Now, though this sounds like a sound marketing strategy, the truth of the matter is they're throwing him to the wolves. They're really encouraging him to do what he deliberately chosen not to do. He wasn't interested in building a huge crowd of people who would follow him around like minions, people who just, at his very beck and call, like a cult leader, would just do whatever he said mindlessly. No, he wasn't concerned about that. He wasn't some trickster. He wasn't some mind control master. He wasn't someone who was concerned about having a great reputation. If you look at some of the things that he did, these are some of the things that could be reputation killers. He wasn't looking at making sure that he had huge influence in the world or gaining the approval of man in any kind of way. But in verse number 1, we find out the real reason. The real reason that he doesn't want to go down to Jerusalem with his brothers to the Feast of Booths is that he says the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now, this is not cowardice. This is not Jesus coming and saying, listen, I'm not trying to go there because it's too dangerous. I don't want to go there because these people are trying to destroy my life. No, this wasn't about that. He knew they were trying to kill him, and this was not the time. He knew that there was going to be a time for his life as well as his death, but it wasn't now. Because Jesus is completely submitted to the will of the Father, that means he's also equally as committed to the timing of God the Father. That was important to him. Following God's will and seeking God's purpose and following his agenda was what Jesus was all about. It's what we need to be all about. For those that are about the world, those that wallow in the world, those that are delving into depravity, those that are simply seeking to appease themselves, those self-pleasers, anytime is the right time. Anytime that they want to do whatever they want to do is the right time. They're outside of the will of God. They're not seeking the agenda of God. Their lives are not determined in their minds by any type of timing or restriction that God may put on them. They're free willing. They're living whatever they want to live. But the word here in terms of my time is kairos. And that kairos characteristically means opportunity, right? It is what is the best time to do something. Jesus is talking about the circumstances that are going to be most suitable. And as Jesus obeyed his Father, he lived out the truth that God's timing is an important expression of his will. We see God's will not in just what he wants to do, but when he wants to do it and how he wants to do it. God's agenda has elements in it that give us an expression of what he's really about, what he's really trying to say. The timing is equally as important as the action that he wants to take. Sometimes, there may be something that's in the will of God, but yet not in the timing of God. Something that God wants to do, he just doesn't want to do it right now. And you can have a revelation concerning God's will, and then it doesn't happen, and we get all perplexed and not realizing that the fact that I know God's will doesn't mean that I'm finished. Right? If I know his will, I also have to know his when, right? God's what is as important as God's when. What he wants to do is as important as when he wants to do it, because that's all a part of the strategy. Every general understands that we've got to attack, right? But when do we attack? We need to retreat. But when do we need to retreat? Listen, when's the best time to retreat? If you watch any kind of strategy, it wasn't a matter of, look at Roman strategy, look at Alexander the Great. You'll see sometimes some of the greatest retreats have been at the right time. The enemy looks like they're routing the general, but he doesn't retreat until nightfall, right? He wants to do it under the cover of night, right? He lights fires, and it looks like that they're still there. He gets 1,000, 3,000 fires lit. And it looks like all night that the enemy is still there, but it's that he's still in his place, and the enemy's watching him from their position, because they're not going to do a night attack because all these people are still here. Yet in reality, they have actually retreated, and he set up fires to look like they were still there. So all night long, as the enemy's watching them and saying, when morning comes, we'll come down there to get them, they've already silently left. What was the retreat? But when was the nighttime? When was equally as important as the what? So when you look at this, we don't just seek God, what do you want to do? But God's will has more than what in it. It has when and how. So Jesus was always pristinely clear of his mission. All of his time is filled with understanding the purpose and the meaning of the mission. His time to be publicly proclaimed as the Messiah was still in the future. He knew that this was not the time, but he also knew something else, that the common response to conviction is not always repentance, that the common response to conviction sometimes is hatred, sometimes it's violence, and there are things that he knew had to happen before he had to lay down his life on the cross. He knew that when he got there and he spoke these words, that they were going to hate him. God's sovereign plan of redemption had to be fully complete in the fullness of time. That means that there's things that have to happen before the thing that is his will comes about. That means that every detail is a part of God's will, not just Jesus's death on the cross, but all the things that came up to it. The disciples that had to leave, the disciple that had to deny him, Judas having to be exposed as a son of perdition, the women who were taking a small role had to come up and take a bigger role as part of the whole idea of just being able to show himself to multiple people and breaking even gender barriers. There are multiple things that had to happen with Mary, that had to happen with Martha, that had to happen with Lazarus. There are multiple things that had to be done before Jesus would lay down his life. But he says, but your time is always ready. Not that your time is ready now. He says, your time is always ready. He says, my time has not yet come, but your time is always ready. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to die on the cross. He simply says, your time is not the same as my time. That when you have a mission from God, when you have an agenda that's given to you by God, you're not the same as people who have no mission and have no agenda. People who are just in the world and also of the world are different from those that are in the world, but who are not of this world. Those who are not of this world are going to see things and have a mission that those that are in the world and of the world simply do not have. The brothers were not submitted to God's will in the same way. So any time was fine with them. Any time for them to go to Feast of Booths, they could do whatever they wanted to do. They're already fulfilling their purpose. When, where, and how his brothers got to the feast was unimportant. Why? Because they had no resistance. There was absolutely no resistance from the enemy. One of the things that people who are not in the will of God, who are not operating in the plan of God, will miss is they do not realize they don't have the same resistance. They're not living the same life. They're in the same world, maybe in the same environment, but they're not going through the same struggle. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. There are those that are not wrestling because they're already submitted to the will of the world. They're already in this world and of this world. So they feel no resistance whatsoever. They're already living in their time, right? You want your best life? If this is your best life, this is your time. There's something better for the believer. We long for something else, another home. Like Abraham, we knew that this was we're sojourners in a foreign land. So they can move about in the world without much consequence. Because Jesus says this, the world cannot hate you. That's why there's no resistance. The world simply cannot hate you. It's not going to hate its own. The world loves its own. What you think about Christ is going to dictate the direction of your life, as well as your eternal soul. How you view Christ determines the resistance that you have. Where Jesus is in your life determines even the attacks that you're going to have on your life. A life lived in the pursuit of worldly pleasures is either apathetic toward Christ or absolutely wholesale rejects Jesus Christ, just lock, stock, and barrel, the whole thing. So they had impunity in some way from spiritual attacks. And the reason why is that the world simply has no issue with skepticism concerning Christ. It has no issue if you do not believe in Christ. It has no issue if you down Christ. It has no issue whatsoever. It's not going to come against anyone who's against Christ. The world is already anti-Christ. By its nature, the world is anti-Christ. So therefore, anyone who wants to put Christ in a place that he's not, anyone who wants to put Christ down, anyone who wants to lift Christ up and then drop him from whatever height they put him, the world has no problem with that. If you don't believe, the world doesn't believe. So the world is not going to fight itself. This person is swimming in the tide of the world. Anybody who's going along with the flow of the world is not going to have any of the issues that come with anyone else who's swimming against the grain. Listen, being a Christian means that you are automatically swimming against the tide. You're doing things that other people think are preposterous. You're living a life that other people will sneer at. And there's a reason for that. Jesus says, they hate me because I testify that its works are evil. And let me tell you something. Some of the nicest people are hated the most because of this very same reason. Jesus says, listen, let me tell you something. You tell the jokes that the world likes, it can't hate you. You think in the same way the world thinks, so it cannot hate you. You operate, your mentality is the exact same operation and mentality that the world operates on and thinks like, that you think just like the world. So why would the world hate you? And what you will expose are the very same things that the world wants to expose. But let me tell you something. What you keep covered is exactly what the world wants to keep covered. What you're quiet about is exactly what the world is quiet about. What you hide is exactly what the world hides. So why would it come against you? You're covering the same thing it covers. Why would it come against you? When you think of spiritual leaders, you think of nothing but grandstanders. So you're saying, hey, go out there and make a big name for yourself. That's exactly how the world thinks. They missed Jesus' whole mission. They missed his message. They missed his words. They didn't understand this whole operating procedure. They had no idea how he was really operating and what he was all about. They thought he was just the same as every other snake oil salesman out there who was just selling a bunch of lies, hoping to get seen by somebody, maybe the right person, to put on a large on a larger stage so that they could show their wares to the most people. That's what they thought it was all about, getting there. And so many people look at ministry like that today, getting somewhere, making sure I'm known, making sure there's a big name. But Jesus says, listen, let me tell you something. They're not hating me because I'm wealthy. They don't hate me because I have such a big name. Let me tell you why they hate me. They hate me because I expose their works. They hate me because I testify of it, that the works they have, that they do, are evil. Jesus doesn't go around pointing out you're evil, you're evil, you're evil. No, his teaching does the work. His teaching causes the problem. His teaching is the issue. What he's teaching them is their problem. What he's showing is the problem. He's exposing what righteousness really is. And when you expose what righteousness really is, it automatically exposes unrighteousness. When you expose what is right, it automatically exposes what is wrong. When you put a spotlight on what God says is righteous, whether you know it or not, it automatically highlights what is unrighteous. And that's what they hated. Jesus didn't have to call out names. He didn't go around saying, and this guy and that person and this one here. No, he simply says, here is what God said. This is not the way it was in the beginning. Let me answer that for you. As people came to him trying to just stump him, he kept giving answers that did not in any way impugn them, yet they felt anger. They felt like he was doing something to them. Listen, they hated the fact that they, as the Jews were just growing in their antagonism and their anger against Christ, they were mad because his teaching corrected their teaching. This is what we taught. This is what we told the people. And now you're coming teaching something contrary to what we're teaching. You're not even saying that what we said was wrong. You're simply saying, this is what God said. That's what ministry is all about. That's what the preaching of the gospel is all about. We don't have to go around just you're bringing people down. The job of the gospel is not to go around and badmouth anybody. We don't have to pull this preacher down. We don't have to react to every preacher that says something that we don't agree with. No, not at all. Now, listen, there's some things we respond to, and that's not a problem. There's some things that need a response. There's some things that are actually currently happening that is going to be a positive thing for your congregation to hear it about and to know about. But the job of the preacher who is there to minister the gospel is to teach the good news. And the good news exposes the bad news that has been taught. The good news exposes the lies that have been taught. I don't have to call you a liar. I just have to expose what is truth. And anything other than that truth is automatically a lie. Listen, you remember in chapter number 5, Jesus heals a man on the Sabbath day. And then he corrects the common teaching that the Jews had on the Sabbath. Right? They thought like nobody can work on the Sabbath. Jesus said, listen, if your oxen falls into a ditch over there, won't you go get him? Won't you pull him out? It's like, yeah, of course we would. Well, listen, I mean, you tell me, is this man here worth less than an oxen? I mean, if that's not work on the Sabbath, then how can this be considered work by just simply healing someone on that day? How can healing be a crime, but yet you pull your oxen out of a ditch is not a crime? Listen, added to that, Jesus was now drawing crowds. He was gaining popularity, which is exactly what they wanted. When you see a crowd over there and it makes you angry, there's a problem with you. Whenever there's somebody else, that everybody's flocking over there. When you're mad about the fact that they're going over there, there's a problem with you. If what you're doing is about popularity, if what you're doing is about gaining a name, there's a problem with you. And Jesus' popularity plus the teaching had all the ingredients that you need for these grandstanders to begin to hate him. And the problem that his brothers, he said, listen, your time is already. They agreed with the common opinions of their day about good and evil. And Jesus comes, therefore, to break that up, to show them that they have no knowledge of what truly good is, nor evil. This wasn't a matter of fact that like you're right on this and wrong on that. He comes to show you, he comes to show all of us that we don't know what it is. We don't even know how to pray as we ought to. That we are offered a clean slate. But he first has to erase what's been written in our minds. That's what the gospel is all about. But we have to come as a clean slate. We come already with things written in us that we come and say, well, listen, I already know about this. You don't have to tell me about that. And Jesus comes and says, well, that was not the way it was in the beginning. Listen, I want you to understand, Moses gave you a bill of divorcement, but that's not what I intended. This whole thing is haywire. Marriage is haywire. Relationships with children is haywire. Your relationship with the church is haywire. Everything here is haywire. Let me just erase everything you thought. And I want to give you the gospel and show you God's true intent for what you're trying to do with your own mind. Let this mind be in you that is in Christ Jesus. And listen, let me tell you something. Jesus was a confronter. When he spoke the gospel, it confronts. And what he did was he confronted the sins of his age. And that's what we do today. We confront the sins of our age. And listen, let me tell you something. When you confront the sins of an age, it's going to put a target on your back. When you confront the sins of your time, we don't have to confront the sins of the past. But when we confront what is in our time, there's going to be a target of hatred on your back. And I can tell you right now, there is no danger of incurring the world's hatred by anything his brothers did, by any of the bench warmers that you see today, because their wishes and their actions are in the world's own spirit. Let's just let it ride. That's the spirit of the age. Let's just let it ride. Let sleeping dogs lie. Don't cause any problems. But I want you to understand something. As we're starting to look here in John, as we're moving closer and closer, what you're seeing is Jesus is turning up the heat. And I want you to know now, I honestly believe that that's what God is doing in this generation, that we're to turn up the heat. It's not what happened in the past. We're not coming to fight old battles. Listen, we don't have to tear down anything from the past. Because let me tell you something, you can't tear down stuff from the past. No matter what you tear down, if you tear down statues, the attitudes are still there. And what we have to fight is an attitude. There are attitudes in our time right now that need to be confronted. There are ways and mindsets in our time that require confrontation. And that confrontation is not going to come from angry people. That confrontation is going to come from sent people, people who are sent in this time to do that job, who are able to rightly divide the word of truth. This is not about being fed up. This is not about being sick. This is not about being culturally angry. This is not about trying to find justice from the world. This is not trying to find some kind of equality in the world. The world is too messed up to ever understand equality. The world is too messed up to ever bring justice. The nations that we live in, no matter what nation you live in, none is holy enough to bring about justice. But all of this truth will set us free. That's what we have in the gospel. Jesus says, you want to be free? It's not going to come through a human constitution. You want to be free? It's not going to come through a human bill of rights. You want to be free? It's not going to come through some human governmental system. It's not going to work that way. We're watching what the best governments in the world can do. Destroy, confuse, disenfranchise, disillusion its own citizens. It can't love you. Can't hurt you. It can't help you. It can only damage you. It can only use you. But there's another kingdom within the kingdom that Jesus says, listen, my kingdom is not of this world. And I want you to be able to see here, there's a confrontation that happens here. We're not here to try to fix this system that is going to die. What we're here is to confront it, so that people will know what is righteous and what is unrighteous, what is true and what is a lie. We have the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I want you to know today, that's what's happening here. Jesus was not out here trying to grandstand. He was not out here like a cult leader. He was not out here trying to just manipulate the minds of people. What he came to do with the truth was to make us free. And that's the role that we have today as ministers of the gospel, to make people free. What we have to be angry with is sin. What we go to war against is the enemy. And it's not flesh and blood. It is not people. People are bound. We need to have pity for people instead of so much anger. Because it's the pitiful heart that looks at people and says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Don't always look for malice. Sometimes what you're seeing is ignorance. And the only thing that kills ignorance is revelation. God bless you. Have an awesome rest of your Thursday evening. Don't forget to share.